What is going on, my fellow game developers? My name is Muddy Wolf, and in today's tutorial we are going to be learning how you create an in-game shop system in Unity. So here you see we've got a little character, he's got a little player movement script on him, there's some coins laying around you can collect, and you also have this shop zone. So once you enter the shop zone, a little area moves on. You can still move and you can come out of the shop, but once you go in the shop you see the shop UI. Now you can see here we have some coins at the top, 300, and I could buy health, mana or speed. And also if I pick up a coin and I go back here, you can see that gives me a random amount of money. I can show you how to do all of this. But let's say we buy some health. We want 5 pieces of health, 5 extra mana, and we go out shop. That's cool and all, but for this game we actually aren't doing anything. So if we buy speed, however, let's say we buy 5 times speed, you can see we move a lot quicker. Let's grab some more money while we're at it. And let's say we buy some more speed. You can see we move even faster. And finally, if we just put all our money into speed, you can see we move like the Flash and ain't nobody stopping us. So this is what we're going to be building in this game. It's mainly based around the shop system, but I'm also going to show you how you can actually apply some buffs to your character and, you know, that sort of thing as well while we're at it. You can also use this to buy clothes. Let's say you want to buy gear for your character. As long as you have a system in place to hold those, this shop system should allow you to buy and update. And also it will make it so you can actually have a bunch of different things you can scroll through as well. So without further ado, let's get into the rest of the video. Okay guys, we're going to start off with the usual. We're in Unity Hub 3.0.0 beta 0.6. We're going to hit a new project. We're going to go to core and we're just going to select 2D. Now here, we're just going to give this a name. We call it shop system. I'm going to just tag on YouTube at the end because I already have one called shop system. That was the prototype I showed you a minute ago. Now we'll just hit create project and we're going to wait for that to load. While we wait for Unity to load, you know what you should go and do? You should go and subscribe to the channel. We do loads of tutorials, and if you're already here learning this one, you're going to find interest in a bunch of the other tutorials I do. So why don't subscribe, even like the video. Okay guys, so as you can see it has loaded. We're going to open up the sample scene, which is actually already open. I don't know why I said that. And we're going to create a few objects in the scene. Now one of the first things we're going to need is a 2D sprite circle, and this is going to be called our player. Now we're going to give this guy the tag of player because we're going to need him to enter some trigger zones. So we're going to give him the tag of trigger or player. And then there we go. We're then going to need a circle collider 2D just so we can actually activate triggers, and also a rigid body 2D for its movement system. We're going to set the gravity scale to 0 because it's going to be a top-down example, but this shop will also work for 3D. It'll work for 2D, it'll work for top-down, and it'll also work for side-scrollers. So you can use this in pretty much any scenario you want, as long as you know how to apply it. So we've got a little player here, and I'm just going to add a new script, and we're going to call it player movement. Now we have created so many player movements on so many different tutorials. So I'm actually just going to paste this code in. It's something we use all the time. It's the exact same code, so I'll explain it slightly. We're going to open it up in Visual Studio Code, and here we are. Let's shrink that side panel. Let's zoom in one. And I'm just going to copy this all and paste the new code in. So you can see here, the thing we have is we're using the Unity engine. We've got our player movement and it's derived from mono behavior. We then got a public float called speed. Now this is important because we're going to be applying some upgrades to our player's speed. So we want to make sure we can actually access this using public. You can also see we have a flow of MX and MY, which is going to take in our input. Then we have our rigid body. We're going to get our rigid body in the start method. Then in the update, we're going to check if we're pressing either the horizontal or vertical axis, which in my case is WS for the vertical or A and D for the horizontal. And then we're going to apply all of that, normalize it so you don't go faster when you're going diagonally, and then multiply it by our current speed. And that's all the player movement does. It's super simple, so give me any shouts in the comments if you get stuck with that. Super dead simple, and it works really well. So that is our player movement. The next thing we want to do is actually get our a box in here. So we're going to create a new 2D object. We'll say sprite, and let's just, a square should I say. And we're just going to move this over to here. Let's just say -8. And we're going to set the size to about 1.5. No, let's say 3 and 3. And let's bring this into about -7.5. And there you go. We've got it on the edge of our box. Let's make it a different color. So we're going to make this a pink. We're going to have a little pink shop. We'll make it not too rough on the eyes. That's like a reddy pink, near crimson. We'll take it. And there we go. So that's going to be the color we're going to use for this video. Also, nobody likes this blue background. Come on, Unity, change it. Make it like just we'll do like a little grey. Should we do a grey? I did a dark color. You know, we'll do the dark. I did the dark in the tutorial. We're going to stick with it. So we'll go for this dark. There you go. That'll work. Dark grey. And that works. So that's our player and our square. We're going to rename this to our shop. And then we're going to add a box collider 2D to this. Now, we're going to select the is trigger. This is going to allow us to enter into the box instead of hitting off it. And the reason we want that is because we want it to be able to go inside the shop. And once we're inside, we're going to activate the trigger. And that way, we're going to say, hey, did the player go inside the box? If he did, show the UI. So that is what we're doing there. We don't need any tags on this because it's going to handle the triggering on its own. So we could add some text to this. So we could add a canvas. I'm not going to do that here. But all you'd have to do is add a canvas, pull it into world space, and then add some text there. Or just use a sprite, a UI with the right shop sprite, and then when your character goes over to it, he'll know it's a shop. So there we go. We've got our shop here. You can see the outline there where the box collider is, where we can trigger. And now we've got that, we want to actually create our actual canvas. So we're going to create a new canvas, and we're going to call this the shop canvas for now. And there you go. And then inside our shop canvas, let's create a UI, and we're going to create a scroll view. Now, what the scroll view does, we're going to call this the shop view or the shop UI. And what the scroll view does is basically allows you to scroll up and down inside of a shop. So here, we're just going to set this equal to full width. Actually, no, let's set it to the center. And let's say, go to our shop canvas, and we're going to set this to scale with screen size. And we're going to set this at 1920 by 1080, a 16 by 9. I also like to 0.5 this, so it's between height and width. And then in our shop UI, I'm going to set this to 1280 by 720, which is another 16 by Y, which should give us a good padding and equal spacing around the edges. We're then going to delete our horizontal or our vertical scroll bar because we're not going to use it. We just want to be able to scroll left and right. So that saying that, we need to go onto our shop UI, and here we want to uncheck vertical scroll because we do not want to scroll vertically, and that should be good for there. Now, inside of our viewport, we have something called content. Now, we're going to be dropping some shop items in here. I'm actually going to make this about 400 high, just so, you know, it looks a bit better. Let's zoom out here. You can see here what it looks like. And we're going to stretch it to the center instead, so it always sits in the middle. Now, we need to add a couple of things to this. We need to add a horizontal layout group, which is going to basically allow us to align elements inside of this. And we're going to select middle left, or even middle, you know, let's do middle center. It means our items will sit in the center of the screen. We're then going to obviously add in some spacing, 20 spacing between each item inside of this. Let's create a couple of boxes just so you can see what this actually does. So let's say a UI image, and let's just set this to be 300 width, 300 height, 400. And there you go. That's going to be one of our cards in there. And now if we go in here, you can see that's set to the middle. Let's duplicate this image. Duplicate, and you can see there's 2. If we duplicate another one, there's 3. But if we go back to the content field, we can see child force expand. Now, we don't want to do that. I don't want to make it go big or anything. I just want to leave them at what size they are. So that's now going to be there. Now, if we wanted to actually scroll this, however, we're going to have some issues. We need to add something called the content size sphere. And what this does is it actually makes the viewport, so the width of this, the same width as what we choose here. And we're going to say preferred size, which is going to basically say, make sure it's as wide as all the elements inside. So we have a horizontal layout group, and we're just going to match the size so it actually fits in width. Now, what we could do here is we could just keep duplicating, and they will go off screen, and they're going to sit in the middle. So you can see the scroll bar is going to start in the middle, which may be annoying for you. So if you do want it to sit to the left, you can change this to be middle left. And now when we hit start, our elements should be sitting in the right order. So you can see here we can scroll left and right on our actual shop menu here. And these could be shops. You can click them to buy elements, and that's what we're seeing here. So let's actually go back and let's just delete. Let's delete a few of these so we can actually see it. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the shop UI and we're just going to change the color to a black. I don't want it to be a white. It looks a bit weird. And the scroll bar, I don't actually want to see this scroll bar. So I'm going to set the height of this to 0. And I'm also going to set the background color to a invisible opacity. And same with all of this in here. So this will go down to an invisible opacity. And the sliding area doesn't actually need it. So there you go. That just makes it invisible so you can't actually see it. And that way it doesn't look so ugly. Or you could just give it a certain height. You could set it back, which would actually just align that. And then what we'll do is go in here and we could say like the handle is going to be a darker color, or we can actually say it's light, but then let's give it, let's say 100. So instead of having that, let's duplicate this a lot. You can see there it's all sitting correctly. And middle left. Let's say that to the center. Or even to the left, sorry, so then that way it will scroll. That way it will sit on the left side. And then, once you have all this done, you can see the scroll bar actually looks pretty cool instead of pretty naff. Although I'm going to make it 10, I think 20 is a bit big. Now if we press play, you can see we have this little scroll bar you can actually use, which I think looks a lot better than the big bulky scroll bar. So each one of our items in here, we're going to create an empty game object, so we're just going to delete this. In here, we're going to create a new crate empty, and we're going to call this the shop item. Now, inside the shop item, we're just going to set the width to be 300 and the height to be 400, so you can see it down here. And inside this, we're going to add a few items. One of the first things we want to add is the quantity, which is going to tell us how much we actually have. So let's right-click, go to UI, and let's add text, and let's just say quantity, and we're just going to set it to 0 for now. Just like that, although when we actually add this, we probably won't even show that. So there we go, that's there. Let's set it to best fit, and let's make it 300 by 50. Let's center it all, align by geometry. Actually, I kind of like it when it's aligned by best fit. Oh no, sorry, just aligned naturally. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move this to the top of this. So it's going to say how many you have at the very top. We're then going to add it. We're going to also rename this to quantity, and it's important because we're going to use the names later to actually get the elements and set them. We're then going to grab this and we're going to create a new UI image, and it's actually going to be the image of the product. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this to 200 by 200, and I'm actually going to move this upwards slightly. So we're going to set it to the top of the page, and we'll give it a position of -50, which is going to sit underneath the quantity text there. And that's where our image of what we're going to be buying actually appears. So on our image, you can actually see that's where it's going to sit. Let's set that to 0 as well. Just, I don't know why that's set offset. Same with that one. Set that to 0. I want it to be centered. And there you go. So that is looking good. So we have the quantity and the image. Now we need the cost of this. So what we're going to do, we're gonna, well, there's two things actually. We need the actual title, so we're gonna say UI text, and let's bring this again probably to the top. I'm gonna set that to 0, and we're gonna put this to 50 minus 250, which should bring it a bit further down. We're actually gonna go 300. It didn't quite make it there. We'll set this to 300, and this equal to 50. We're gonna do the same here. We're gonna set this to white. Best fit, center, and then we're just going to say shop item. Just like that. Also looks like I've done this wrong. I put this at -59. That should just be -50. Although if you do want that extra space, you could probably say -60, giving it 10 pixels space there. So you know what, we'll stick with that. And this way we can set this to be equal to 250. And we can say 260, and we'll say 270 to also give it 10 pixels of space there. So that's now spaced out a bit more evenly. And we just want to rename this, so we can keep that as image. This one, however, we're going to rename to name, just like that. And then finally, I'm just going to duplicate this text here, and I'm just going to rename it to cost. I'm then going to move it from 270 to even further, so let's just bring it below. And we'll say -320, 330 to give it that 10 pixel space. And we're going to say cost. And let's just say 10 just to show it there. Or we could just put a $sign or a pound sign if from the UK. But we'll just say it's dollar because most people who watch this are probably American or use dollars anyway. So there we go. So we have the quantity, the image, the name, and the cost of the item. Now we've got that all set. This is basically all good to go. But what we want to do is on the shop item, we want to add a button. And this button is basically just going to stay there for now. But we need to select a graphic. And the graphic is going to be the image because we want it to actually affect the image when we click it. So if we press play now, you see we have that image, and as we click it, it has a little pulse. So you can see it kind of pulse this color there, just so you can see the item being clicked. And there you go. So that's now set up. So there's a shop item, but we need to turn this into a prefab, something we can reuse. So a prefab is a reusable set of code, and we can instantiate it or respawn in more when we actually play the game. So I'm just going to delete this item because we don't need anything inside of there just yet. One other thing we can do here is currently our shop canvas, it looks all good, but we don't have a title. So we're going to say UI, text, and we're just going to call this title. Let's bring this to the top just so it's in the layered order. And we'll set this to stretch across the top. And we'll set it to minus 300-ish. Maybe that's too much. Say minus 150. 200. That will do. And we'll make this 50. Or maybe even, let's say 100. And minus 175. 180. Is that right? That looks right. It's sitting at the top. That's what we wanted. And then inside of here, we're just going to say upgrades. We're going to set the text to be white. We will best fit it. And we'll give this a much higher number. We'll center. And we'll also leave that. That looks good. Also, yeah, the reason this should be at the bottom actually is because obviously the UI needs to sit at the top. There we go. And let's give this a bit more space. Let's say minus 200 to actually bring it in a little. And there we go. Now we've got a little tile. We'll make it bold as well. There we go. That looks really cool. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select the shop canvas and we're just going to turn that off because currently we don't want it on. We don't want to see it all the time. We only want to see it when we're inside of the shop. So what we want to do is on our shop, we're going to create a shop UI or just a shop trigger. We're going to hit enter and we're going to create a new C# script for that. And once it's loaded, we'll double click it to open it up in Visual Studio Code. Now inside the shop trigger, we just need some simple things. We can remove this. We can also remove the two system using tags. And let's also remove all these. Now inside of here, we just need an on trigger enter 2D. And we're going to need an on trigger exit 2D as well. So inside the first one, we just want to say if other.compare tag is equal to player. So if the player goes inside of the shop, we're going to say shop manager dot instance dot toggle shop. Now, shop manager doesn't exist yet, so we're going to have some errors, but we're going to create the shop manager in a minute. So the shop manager is actually going to handle all of our shop stuff. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to paste the exact same code inside on trigger exit as well. And that is all we need to do for this. Now, we need to go create our shop manager. So let's go back to Unity. It's going to throw some bugs our way in the console, which is fine. Let's come in here. Let's save. Let's create a new empty and call it shop manager. Let's move it to the top just because I like the managers being at the top. Reset its transform. Add a component called shop manager. Hit enter. And then double click it to open it up in Visual Studio Code. Now, there's a few things we need. Let's just delete this, delete that. Let's go in here and let's say using Unity Engine .ui because we're going to need to use some UI elements. Let's move that up there as well. And again, remove these for now. So now we need a public static shop manager instance. Now, the reason we need this is we want to make a singleton pattern out of this. We only want to have one of these ever existing because it's going to handle how much coins we have. It's going to handle how many upgrades, what we need to apply to our character and stuff like that. So this is where this is. So for now, we'll explain this more later on. We're going to need a couple of references. We're going to need a public integer called coins, and we're going to set this by default to 300 because we're going to give ourselves 300 coins to start. We're going to also say public upgrade, and we're going to set this and called upgrades. Now, we don't have upgrade yet, so this also goes into error. To fix this, we're just going to comment out, and we're going to add upgrade back soon. Now, we're going to need some references. Now, inside the references, we're going to have a public text called coin text, which is going to be where our actual coins sit, or how much coins we actually have. We're then going to need a public game object called shop UI, and that's where we're going to put our canvas to toggle it on and off. Now, while we're here, let's go down and let's just create an awake method. And inside our make method, we're going to say if instance is equal to null, instance equals this. So what we're saying, if this instance doesn't exist, if there's no such thing as instance, we're going to set it to this. Else we're going to destroy that, because this means instance already exists and we don't need two shop managers, so we're going to destroy it. We're also going to say don't destroy on load, and we're going to pass through this game object, because what we want to do is when we actually start the game, we basically want to make sure this shop manager is always there, even if we come from a menu scene or whatnot, so it's ready to go. Now, we want to create our public void, and we're going to call this toggle shop. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to say shop UI dot set active is equal to not shop UI active self. So what this means, shop UI active self, means is the shop UI active? If it is active, we're going to pass through false, because we want it to turn off. But if it's set to false, then we want to actually turn it on. So we're adding this exclamation mark to basically say do the opposite of what we already are. And that's just how we're going to toggle our shop. Now, you can see here our issue is now gone, and this is now a valid void element here, and we should be able to see this working. So let's go back to Unity and let this load. All the errors should disappear. They have. Let's go to our shop, and let's drag in our shop let's go to our shop manager, and let's drop in our shop canvas here, so you can see shop UI. Drop it in just like that. We don't need to set the coin text yet. That was just for demonstration. And let's hit play. So now we can move around, because we added our player movement. Let's go over to our box. And there you go. We can see upgrades has appeared. And if we leave the shop, you can see it disappear. So you go in the shop and upgrades appears. And if you leave the shop, it will then disappear as well. So that's how you can toggle it on and off. But now, how do you actually buy stuff from the shop? To do that, we need to go into our shop manager, and we need to set up a few different things. So this is where we need to untoggle our upgrades class. So we've got a class here. We need to actually create a class called upgrade that's going to hold all the information of our upgrades. So underneath, outside of the shop manager mono behavior script, we're going to create a new element. Now we're going to do system.serializable, which is going to allow us to see these upgrades inside of Unity's editor. Underneath this, we're going to say public class upgrade, and then we're just going to say we need a public string called name, we need a public int called cost, we need a public sprite, which is going to be our image, and then we need two hidden elements. So we need a public int called quantity, which is going to tell us how many we already own, so how many we've already bought, and we're going to need another hidden inspector public game object, which we're going to set to item reference. So when we actually load everything into our shop, we want to get a reference to that item so we know which one we're clicking and what we're doing with it. So another thing we want to do is we want to go to onGUI, and on GUI we're just going to say coin text is equal to coins.toString, and we're actually just going to go here, and to make it a bit more obvious, we're going to say coins, and we're going to say plus coins.toString. So this will now show up where we have our coin text. So let's go create this coin text as well. So inside of our shop canvas, where our title is, we're actually going to change this to coins. And I'm just going to say coins, and we're going to set it to 0 for now. So if we now just turn on this, you can see it's going to show our coins at the top. So how much money we actually have. And there you go. So that's now sat there and ready to go. So now we have our coin set. That should show up as 300 when we play. So if we hit play, saying that, it will not, because we need to go to our shop manager, open our canvas, and we need to add in the reference to our coins. So drop that in there. So now we can see that. Now if we hit play, we should be able to go in here, and you can see we have 300 coins. And that's because we set our coins default to 300. So that's all good. We've got our coins, we've got our shop UI. Let's actually get some items in. So you can see here we have this upgrades drop down. Now if we hit add here, we can actually have some elements. Now we can have a name, so we could say item 1, or for example, let's say health, and let's say the cost of this is 10. Now we need to give this an image. Now we can select a sprite. You could either go get a sprite or you could just use any from here. I'm going to actually create a couple of sprites. So we're going to go down to the project. I'm going to right click, create 2D sprite, and we're going to create a square. We're then going to create another sprite just so we have some different things. We're going to create another sprite and we'll create a circle. And then one more sprite. Let's go down here, 2D sprite, and let's just give it a hexagon. So we could do a bunch of different sprites here. You can also drop in your own sprites and use them. This is just an example of how you can create some images inside of Unity. So inside of our shop manager, we can now add in a sprite. Let's say the health is going to be a square sprite. We're then going to get a second one, and we're going to call this, let's say, mana, because we're going to have some magic. Let's say this equal to 15. And we're going to say, actually, no, let's say 5. Mana's always cheaper. And then we're going to swap the image to be our circle. If we can find it, there it is, the circle sprite. And we're going to get one more, and this is going to be our speed. And we're going to set this to 10. And we're going to set the circle equal to this hexagon here. Or sorry, the image to be this hexagon, and that should be set for our elements. Now, this isn't going to do anything on its own. What we need to do is obviously show these inside of our shop UI. And to do that, we obviously need to go and apply them. So let's go into our shop manager again. And let's go under references. Now, under references, we're actually going to need some other things. We're going to need a public transform, and we're going to call this the shop content. We're then going to need a public game object called item prefab, which is going to be our shop item prefab. And then we're going to need a public player movement player, because we're going to need to be able to apply these upgrades to our player, like the speed. Now, inside of start, we're going to create a new start method underneath awake. And we're going to say for each upgrade in upgrades. So for every single upgrade we have put in our upgrades tab, we're going to create an element for it. We're going to say game object item is equal to instantiate, and we're going to say item prefab, and we're going to instantiate at the shop content area. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the shop content is where we're going to instantiate our new item. Now, underneath this, we're going to say upgrade.itemRef is equal to item. So remember, inside of this area here, we actually create an item ref, and that's where we're going to set the shop item to this item. Now, we're actually going to check, so we're going to say for each, and now we're going to say for each transform child in our item.transform. So what we're doing now is we're going to get every single child element of our item prefab, which is actually, once this loads, I will show you this shop item here. So you can see we have quantity, image, name, and cost. Let's go back. We're going to basically check for each one. We're going to say if child.gameObject.name is equal to quantity, then we're going to say child.gameObject.getComponent, and we're going to say the text component dot text is equal to upgrade dot quantity dot toString. We're then going to say else if our child, let's actually just copy this so it's quicker, is equal to our cost. So if it's called cost, we're basically just going to say child object game object dot get component text dot text is equal to upgrades dot cost dot toString. So we're going to pass through the cost of the item and change it to a string. We're also going to add some strings here, put a $sign and add a plus sign so we can actually see the $sign in front. We're then going to do else if again. We're going to say child dot game object dot name is equal to name. And if it's equal to name, we're just going to say child object dot get component text upgrade is equal to name. All right, so we've got that. We just need one more. Let's just copy this again. And in here, we're going to change it from our name now. We're going to say the image. We're actually going to get the image component. And then we're going to say if we get our sprite, we're going to get the upgrade.image. And we're going to set it to that. So that's actually going to set our images color or name. So let's have a look. That should now show all of our objects. So let's go back to Unity. Let's let it reload its scripts. Let's come out of this and let's go into our shop manager and just make sure we've got everything set. So we need to set our shop content. So that is the shop UI content underneath the actual shop or viewport. We need to get an item prefab, which is going to be our shop item we saved in our project. We're then going to get our player movement, which is going to just be our player dropped in there. And now let's hit play and let's go over to this element here. If we go over, you can see the elements are now showing. We can click them, but they don't do anything because we have no click event. So we need to actually set up a click event. But you can see here, these are now loading and they look good. So to make it so you're able to buy stuff, we actually need to do quite a few things. So let's go back into our shop manager. And under the start method, after this for loop, we just want to go in here and we want to say item.get component button.onClick add event listener or add listener, and then we're going to do an arrow function that says buy upgrade. Now we need to obviously create this buy upgrade, so we're going to say public void buy upgrade, and then we're obviously going to pass through the upgrade. The first thing we want to do is we want to check if we have enough money to actually buy it. So we're going to say if coins is greater than or equal to upgrade cost. That was way too much to autocomplete. Let's remove all of that. We're going to say coins is minus equal to upgrade.cost. So we're going to take away those coins. We're going to say upgrade.quantity is equal to plus plus. We're going to say coin text. To be fair, actually, we don't need to do coin text because that's in something else. We could just say upgrade dot item ref dot transform dot get child 0 dot get component text is equal to upgrade dot quantity dot to string. So we're just going to upgrade the actual quantity name, and then what we could do is we could say apply upgrade, and we can actually create a function now to actually pass through our upgrade to our player. But for now, we're going to leave that. So we're just going to see if this actually works. So let's go back in here. Let's hit play. Let's go in here and let's see if we click one. You can see we took some coins, that took 10, and we now have 1 health. So we could buy a few of these, and also a few of these. So now you can actually buy stuff from your shop and set a quantity. But how do you use them? So we have the health, mana, and speed, but how do we actually use them? So let's go back to our script and let's create this apply upgrades function. So underneath, we'll say public void apply upgrade, and then we're going to pass through our upgrade, and then we're going to create a switch statement. So we'll say switch, and we're going to say upgrade dot name, and we're going to say if the case is speed. So if we're going to be upgrading the speed, we're going to say player dot speed is plus equal to the upgrade dot value, or we could just actually say 2f. So we're going to upgrade it every time we have an upgrade. We're going to give us 2 more speed. We're going to say break. We'll go down and then create a default which says debug.log. Obviously, normally you'll do a proper thing. We'll say no upgrade available. So if we, for some reason, for example, like health and mana, for example, if we don't have it, we're just going to say there's no upgrade available. So let's go back to our game and let's see if this works. So let's hit play. Let's go over here and now let's buy the health. So you can see we've bought the health, but it says no upgrade available because we're not actually got health in our game. But if we did, we would then create a switch statement with the health to upgrade it. But if we click speed and we click it multiple times, you can see our player actually moves faster. So let's see how fast it takes him to get from one side to the other. You ready? Not long at all. So let's upgrade this a few more times. Let's just give it all of it. Oh, my character's that fast and I can't control him. And there you go. You can see it's a lot quicker to get from left to right with these speed upgrades. You can see that's working amazingly. So you can see here we have 29 speed upgrades. And if we didn't buy that health, we could probably have 30. Which makes our character extremely fast. However, you probably might want to set some caps on this, but you know, that's a challenge for you. So you can see here, that's how our shop works. It looks all good. Now, what happens if we want some coins? How do we get new coins? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new 2D sprite circle. We're going to call it coin. We're just basically going to set the transform back to 0. We're going to make it yellow. I'm just going to say FFCE00. We're going to set it to 0.2. 0.2, you know what, that's a bit small. 0.5, we'll make it half the width. And 0.5. Right, like that. It looks like an egg now. And let's just move these randomly around. So I'm going to put this up here. We're going to add a circle, collider 2D. We're going to say it's a trigger. And we're going to have a coin script. So in here, we're just going to say coin, hit enter. And now we have a coin script. Let's double click to open it up. And we're just going to say, on trigger enter 2D, we're going to say if other.compare tag is equal to game object, we're just going to destroy it. And what we're going to say is we're going to say shop manager dot instance dot coins plus plus, just like that. Or we can actually create a random value. So this would only make our coins go up 1 per thing. But what happens if we wanted an int called value in our game? We can say start, and every time this is a new cred, we're going to say value is equal to a random dot range between, and we can set between anything. We'll say between 20 and 100, so we can get up to 100 extra coins. And then instead of plussing our 1, we can just say plus equal to value. Then let's just delete the 2 using tags, they're not required, and there you go. This is now allowing us to get a new coin and remove it. So let's just go back to Unity, let this refresh, hit save. Let's create a prefab out of this so we have them, and now we can just drop in some coins. So if we drop in another coin, we can just move this along, maybe move it down. Let's drop in one more. Let's just duplicate this coin. So we've got another one. Let's move it across and maybe back up a little. And there you go, hit save. And now, if we actually play, you can see we currently have 300 coins. But if we collect this and we go back, you can see we have 396. That was a pretty good coin. If we go collect this one, we should be over 400, 426. And finally, the last coin should now make us up to 500. Look at that. That was some good coins. That was almost enough 100. I think that was like 99, that one. And now we can buy all the speed in the world. And we're going to be that fast. We're going to break Unity. Look how fast our player's going to be. And there you go. Oh, we can also afford 1 mana. And there you go. You can see our player's that fast. I don't know where he's gone. Let's demaximize and let's have a look. Where is he? He's all the way over there. So let's say if we move, you can see how fast he now moves. So if you look over here, that's how fast he's currently moving. He's that fast, he could probably fly past our screen and we wouldn't even notice. Look at that. It's like, boof. It's like a flicker of light. He's so fast. But yeah, that's how you create a game. We added coins. Well, that's how you create a shop system, so not a game. You know, this isn't a game. This is just how you can create a shop system within your game. But yeah, we've got our shop here where you can go into it. Once you go into it, you can buy upgrades. You could also do, again, you don't have to do upgrades. You could buy shop items. You just have to come up with a way to actually apply it to your character. And there you go. Or you can buy like different sprites. So you can say, okay, I want to buy a red circle instead of this white circle for my player. And you can do that inside a shop. If you want to see more on, let's say, vanity stuff like buying clothes, skins and stuff like that, let me know. I'll show you how you can convert this into like a skin selector. Maybe we'll do a 3D version just so you can see it working in both 2D and 3D. Okay, Wolfpack, that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to put a thumbs up. If you're new around here, put your paw on that subscribe button and become one of the Wolfpack members. Also, don't forget to leave a comment, and you can also jump in our Discord server to get involved with the community. We're all a bunch of game developers, web developers, and we have a lot of fun there, so links in the description for that. And finally, guys, thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you've learned something new. You've learned some new tricks and skills and talents to create the best game you possibly can. Thank you all, and peace out.